At the 2016 Solar Power International in Las Vegas, PV Magazine hosted its fourth Quality Roundtable event. At the forum, the assembled experts discussed 4 cases of poor quality and voted as to who was responsible.
I'm glad that something like this is able to hopefully eject the black sheep.
Black sheep is an informal way of describing substandard quality, while emphasizing that some shortcomings are preventable. Of course, generally, the real situation is much more complex, as the discussion of the cases clearly showed. The first case discussed was a remarkable example of when hotspots develop. 3 months after completion of the solar array, the first so-called snail trails were visible on the installed modules. After 2 years, 450 modules of the 2 megawatt plant exhibited hotspots. The EPC, which had the responsibility for the O&M on the plant for the first 2 years of operation, didn't report this to the investor. What's more, the module manufacturer argued that hotspots were only an issue when they were 45 degrees Celsius hotter than the rest of the module, even though some parts of the back sheets at one point had become completely molten.
So that was the line in the sand the module manufacturer drew.
One case was introduced by Dirk Michaels, a lawyer at Ballard Spa in Los Angeles.
Now this is the case where everything that can go wrong did go wrong. It was in a state here in the southern US.
There are 2 investors involved and 1 EPC. In short, the first investor sold the project at the stage that's known as notice to proceed, when the EPC starts contracting. The EPC was chosen by the first investor. After construction, the city inspector gave the okay. However, an independent engineer found many violations in breach of national electrical codes, and that about half of the modules were no longer under warranty. Another case dealt with burnt-out cables and connectors. It involved connectors from different manufacturers. Overall, it was clear that in these cases the faults weren't coincidental and certainly not acceptable for the investors, and that either the EPC or module manufacturer was responsible for them occurring. In some ways, either through insolvency, unclear contracts, or because quality control tests, which would have helped in assigning responsibility for failures, were just not carried out, and at the end of the day, the investor was left in the lurch. Tom Ernest from DuPont made the point that if an investor had to exchange only 6% of the modules at an array, that it corresponded to a 1% higher degradation rate. You can see here on the blue line the replacement rates. So at 6.2%, the LCOE, depicted on the horizontal axis, can be increased by 0.5 cent. The red line shows that this equals the LCOE increase equal to a degradation rate of 1.5% per year. Therefore, replacement of modules are a serious risk which ought to be avoided. Alex Ju of Suntech said that no test can simulate exactly what happens in the field, and referred to a case in Thailand where modules from his company were underwater for 2 months as a result of flooding. But even if tests will never simulate this, he's very much in favour of enhanced stress tests, which are far more stringent than IEC standards. Andy Klump from Clean Energy Associates made the case for testing on behalf of investors by comparing the reduced costs in installation with and without quality assurance. What's more, Klump noted that CEA's experience of working on 8 gigawatt of modules reveals that there isn't one single fault like hotspots that needs to be tested for and above all others. To demonstrate it, one solar park CEA worked on, cell faults were responsible for 17% of problems and backsheets 13%. On another project, backsheets were responsible for 6% of faults, with cell interconnection accounting for 37%. And what about the faulty cables and connectors? Brian Mills of Multicontact said that new standards in a number of markets, including the US, will prohibit EPCs from using connectors from different manufacturers.
Okay, how about the EPC?
This is the audience vote on the second case where the installation wasn't compliant with national electrical codes. It's pretty clear who's to blame. Generally, the votes were pretty clear throughout the roundtable event. Also, company names in each of the cases were never used, as the purpose of the roundtable is to learn, not to point fingers. But while appointing blame when something goes wrong may be difficult, making a case for quality right across the supply chain certainly isn't. So make sure you keep in touch with the next Quality Roundtable event if it takes place in your neck of the woods soon. PV Magazine would like to thank Roundtable sponsors DuPont, CEA, Multicontact and Suntech.